What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Combat Corporation, your source of combat sports. I'm your host, Al the Postmaster Tomorrow. Today, I have a gear review on the ONX Sports Premium MMA Sparring Gloves. All right, folks, as always, I'm incredibly excited to bring you yet another gear review, and today is a bit more of a special review than some because I've said this about a couple gloves in the past, but we have reached the top of the mountain. These are for sure the most requested pair of gloves I've ever had in channel history, and they're one of the most anticipated pieces of equipment that's ever dropped in the combat sports community, especially amongst MMA fighters. These are the ONX Sports Premium MMA Sparring Gloves, and guys, we've been waiting a long time for these gloves to come out. It was about 5 years ago when I first saw them. I believe it was on the Joe Rogan Experience with Trevor Whitman and Justin Gaethje went on and showed some of this equipment that ONX Sports used. They brought the foams out and everything. Joe Rogan tried on the boxing gloves, the MMA fight gloves, which are still not released to the public yet, and also the MMA sparring gloves. And around that same time is when I started the channel, and I even had people ask me what do I think about the gloves and if I had tried them yet. And no, I don't have the ins to get the equipment from Trevor Whitman himself, as much as I wish I did. But basically, we've waited a long time for these gloves to be available to the public. And again, I want to say it was August 26th of 2025 when I got alerted that they were available by my Shopify, and I bought one of the last models that was available. There was like 3 left when I bought them, is what it said on the website. So I was super excited to finally try these because so many world champions have tried them. Kamaru Usman, Justin Gaethje, Corey Sandhagen, Rose Namajunas, and multiple other high-level championship caliber fighters have used these gloves. And you know what? I think when you have that type of reputation and you have those high caliber guys using it, generally we tend to gravitate towards that equipment because obviously it's going to keep them safe. It will keep us safe at a lower level is the way I would word that. Now, a little bit of a background about ONX Sports real quick, just in case you didn't know. ONX Sports is owned by a man named Trevor Whitman, who is a very well-respected and loved coach amongst the MMA community. Now, he has won multiple Coach of the Year awards, and again, I just mentioned a few names and world champions that he's trained in the sport of MMA, but he has a lot more. Like when he's transitioned from training champions in boxing, he's primarily a boxing trainer. Very good technical striker as far as MMA goes now, understands the ins and out of everything of the sport from being around it for so long. But he made the Grudge Training Center, and that was Shane Carwin, Nate Marquardt, Rashad Evans, so 2 UFC champions and 1 Strikeforce champion right there. He's worked with several other people, like Pat Barry too, who was a ranked UFC heavyweight back in the day. Worked with a lot of different people, and he was just well respected by everybody. And he even transformed some of the most diehard wrestlers like Kamaru Usman and Justin Gaethje into hard-hitting strikers. And that's a really big thing that he is applauded for in the community. He has a very advanced coaching style is the way I would word it. He thinks outside the box, which is always awesome. And basically what he did is he wanted to do that with the equipment in the world of boxing and MMA. So he basically said, I think that boxing equipment and MMA equipment is so far in the past and we need to do something about it. So I got to listen to that podcast years ago, and he basically said he took his mother's sewing machine and went to Joann Fabrics and just tried a bunch of different things out and made gloves basically from what he thought would work. And eventually he started playing around with a bunch of different materials. He started ordering from different places to make sure he can make the best equipment ever. And that's where the X Factor came in. And that's another reason why this review means a lot to me, guys, because the X Factor was one of the first gloves I've reviewed on the channel, and it was a very similar situation. We knew about those gloves for like 2 or 3 years before they were made readily available to the public. And now we have the same thing here. And it was around the same time I had those gloves for about 3.5 months before I reviewed them. And now I've had these for about 3.5 months since we're in the middle of January now. So I'm very excited to finally review these gloves. ONX is very well known for the technological advancements. I mean, their X Factor glove was absolutely crazy as far as things that you'd never heard of in the world of boxing yet. Almost all their gloves are made of microfiber composite leather, which is not commonly used. It's basically what a lot of basketballs, footballs, snowboarding uses it a lot because it's very resistant to the elements, water resistant, rip resistant. It doesn't bubble, doesn't tear, doesn't fade, which is always cool. And then on top of it, with the X Factor padding, it was heat moldable, so it didn't necessarily formed to your fist a lot more natural. It broke in the glove a lot quicker. It didn't like completely mold to your fist as if like it was creating a custom fit, but it was pretty close. And in my opinion, it did a really good job of that. And on top of it, the interior lining had a strap system, the actual X across the back, that when you pulled it, it said that hand wraps were not necessarily a suggestion, but it was optional. And that was a cool part, is that the interior lining acted as a pair of hand wraps, and that had never been heard of in a pair of gloves to this day, which is absolutely crazy. I bring that up because that's why so many people were excited for these gloves, because Trevor Whitman and a lot of other fighters said this is going to fix eye pokes, this is going to fix broken hands, broken wrists, any type of hand problems, and so many people have used these. The last thing I want to say, because I know this is a long intro, the last thing I want to say before I get into these, do not confuse these with the new Precision line that was just dropped. At the time when I bought these in August, there were not as many options on the website. They did not have the Precision line yet. And basically all the Precision line is that these are the premiums. They go for about $219, and they are made of a more durable material, basically is what they say. And they say these are meant for guys that are training upwards to 2 to 3 times a day, which, you know, is a good marketing ploy. But at the end of the day, if you want them, you can get them too. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. And then on top of it, the Precision line is about $145. And instead of the microfiber composite leather that you have on the outside and the leather on the inside lining, it's just all a type of synthetic leather that they would call it. It's basically a vinyl sheet, and it says it's more for your pro-ams or your weekend warriors, things like that. But honestly, I had a couple friends that I saw had them, and they tried, I guess one of them had this, and then the other one had the other one, the Precision, and they said they was virtually the same thing. It just felt different on the outside, and that was about that. So it's completely up to you. I will get the Precision down the line, but since I have these, I don't see a point in getting them unless you guys really are going to heart me about that. I'll go get them. But they are different, basically just less durable, less quality, I guess is the way you would word that. But, you know, ONX makes really good stuff, so I wouldn't think it would be that much different. Same exact glove, just a different outer shell. The other thing I wanted to say is, because it does say that they want you to have like a big professional background when it comes to these gloves, I was very happy when I got these, because about a week or two after I bought these and got them in the mail, I signed my fight with LFA. Now, although I lost the fight, I was able to use these every day in training for sparring, pads, bag work, grappling, anything you can think of. So I've broken these gloves in and beat them up and used them in a complete professional fight camp. So please keep that in mind. With that said, I know one of the longer intros I've ever had, but when it comes to really cool brands like this, I tend to talk a lot, but that's always why I put timestamps for you guys. So let's go ahead and go into the exact model I have for you today. I got these gloves in the L/XL size, and they only come in the one colorway with a premium, and that is the black and gold. And of course, they only have the hook and loop closure, though there are some pictures of the lace-ups that Kamaru Usman and Justin Gaethje used. I don't know if they'll ever release that. There are some brands that are starting to drop a lot more MMA lace-up sparring gloves. So you might see that in the future. It wouldn't shock me. But for now, it's only the hook and loop closure. You have 3 sizes to pick from. And at the time when I bought them, there was only 2, if memory serves. Now there's 3. They have small/medium, large/extra large, is what I got, and then double XL. And I have a feeling the double XL size is more like your Shane Carwin hands. And since Trevor Whitman was his coach, he knows how big his hands were. I think he was the only guy in the UFC that had a bigger sized hand than Brock Lesnar, and he wore a 5XL glove or a 4X or a 6XL glove. So those are for monster hands. For your reference, I wear a size 14 ring. I have short, fat fingers, and I have fat palms. And when I close my fist and wrap around with like a tape measure, like some websites tell you to do, my fist is almost like 11 inches, like 10.5, something like that. So if memory serves. So I don't have the biggest hands on the planet, but they're not small. We'll word it that way. So the L/XL size has worked just fine for me. That's for your reference. But if you have massive monster hands and you want a little bit extra room for maybe more hand wraps and stuff, I would go with the XXL. But for me, L/XL works pretty fine with most MMA glove models out there because they're usually fit very similar. But again, my exact model, only one colorway, L/XL size, and for now, only the hook and loop closure. Going into the actual look of the glove, again, I always love that it has that futuristic look, and it's just really appealing to the camera. You can see how the top is really reflective because of that microfiber composite leather, has that really nice futuristic shine to it. But when we come down to the rest of the glove, you can see it's more of a matte colored finish that eats the light a lot more, which I think is a really interesting dynamic to the glove. It gives it that nice, like, ooh, it's different. As you can see here, the back of the punch surface is all black, but you can see we have the gold ONX logo, the ONX there, and it has all the nice sweeping lines that really catch your eye there. And really the only difference about the design of the glove itself is that the other one just switches the letters around. So on the top of the fingers here, it's X and O instead of the other way around like the other glove. But again, you can see here, you have that nice grippy texture that you would see in the microfiber composite. Gives it that nice look to it, almost like a type of leather. It's definitely a little bit different, but it feels really nice. It looks like a really high quality basketball. But when we go ahead and go down to the base of the wrist, you can see again, we have that matte black color, kind of changes a little bit of color there. It's a bit more bright than here. This is more of a midnight black. This is more of a lighter black because of the material change. And then you also have a gold ONX logo there, which is a nice rubber patch, which is very smooth to the touch. You can also see at the base of the wrist cuff, in the wrist strap itself, it says ONX Sports. Kind of has like a marbled effect going on there, and it says authentic, letting you know that is an authentic glove. The gloves used to come with like cards that had the serial number and stuff on it for the boxing gloves. I didn't see that for the MMA gloves though. As you can see here, we also have some two logos there at the base. We turn the glove around, again, the thumb and the other part of the wrist strap is that matte black. When we open it up, you can see it's a reflective leather, which looks really nice. So again, gives it that nice pop. Same thing for the finger guards. It also gives you the that leather there. It gives it a nice pop and reflection. We open the glove itself up. There is like that, I don't know what else to call it other than like the futuristic Velcro, because it's like more fine, and you have that there, and that's black, and then you turn it over, and then it's also black there. And you can see here that it just tells you what size glove you got. Right there, if it'll focus for you. L/XL, and then on the other side, it's just an ONX Sports logo. But again, the whole glove, it's just a basic black glove with the cool gold logos, and black and gold is one of my all-time favorite colorways. You can't ever go wrong with black and gold. So hides dirt really well. It's going to be very easy to clean and maintain. No spots, no anything like that. Now we go into the actual build of the glove. We can talk about the outer shell. And again, I've mentioned microfiber composite leather or microfiber leather a few times. Some people will just call it composite, whatever it is you want to think about. Basically, again, a lot of sports are starting to shift that, because although leather is still a very popular material and it's still very durable, microfiber composite, of course, is a man-made material. So you're able to put certain specs into it. And again, it's very flexible. It has a very grippy texture to it compared to a lot of other materials out there. Like leather can sometimes be very smooth, soft, and supple. This is very soft and supple. It's actually a very soft material itself, and it's very flexible. And you can see when I like do this at the base, you can see how it moves around. It's stretched over the padding pretty well, so I can't pull too much off it to kind of show you how flexible it is. But if I take the little wrinkles here and move them back and forth and pull them, you see how flexible that is? I'm able to pull that off. So imagine you're like grinding on the mat, or you're like, you know, you're catching punches, whatever it is. The material is not going to catch, scrape, rip, crack, or anything like that. That's the nice part about a microfiber composite, is that it will not be damaged by the elements if you don't let it. And even if you let it for a while, it's basically chemically engineered to do the exact opposite of breakdown, which is always good. It breaks in similar to leather as well. It's usually pretty broken in when you get it, and it has a pretty artificial scent to it. but that's the nice part about the glove, is that the top part is that microfiber composite. The only difference about the outer shell, and a lot of gloves do something like this, like Combat Sports, Max Strike have a leather top with a vinyl bottom, but in this case we have the microfiber composite, and then you have, it's definitely still synthetic to me, I could be wrong, but it's like a synthetic suede material, which absorbs the sweat a little bit more than this, because this is completely moisture resistant. This soaks it in a little bit more, but it still feels pretty nice to the touch. It feels like an artificial suede, has that artificial color to it, and you do have that rubber patch on the back, which some people get concerned about, but no, it's super smooth to the touch. Like I'll even show you. I'll take it and rub it like this. All I feel is like the friction from the heat of just going back and forth, but it's not bad at all. So you don't have to worry about scraping your partner with that whatsoever, which is good. The thumb also has that same type of suede material. It's also great. It feels like a Hayabusa thumb almost, to kind of wipe the sweat away, which I think was an intended design by Trevor, and I think that's a smart design. The only difference is, and the glove is, it says on the website, so I'm just telling you what the website says, the interior lining is all leather, and the grips are all leather as well. The finger guards are all leather. So you do have a very unique blend of an outer shell and the lining being completely different materials. But again, just for your reference, we have the microfiber composite top. For me, it's like a vinyl suede going on here, and it still feels really good. And then the inside is all an actual cowhide leather. Same thing for the finger guards there. When we talk about the padding, as you can see, I actually call the top of the padding the muffin top, because it kind of resembles a muffin top shape, in my opinion. You can see the outside over here. It's designed like a boxing glove, and as you can see, compared to some other MMA sparring gloves, it's just one solid circle, or I should say a sphere. This is more of a actual angle, just like a boxing glove would be, so it tucks your knuckles behind here. You have a multi-layered high-density foam system on the inside. It says shock absorbing, but the one thing about the foams that ONX Sports uses, I think shock absorbing is not necessarily a great word for it. I would say it's shock stopping, and that's kind of similar to like D3O paddings and stuff like that, but they use a type of what they call a high technology foam in their gloves, if memory serves. When I reviewed the ONX Sports X Factor, they said it was a high technology foam, and you can see Trevor Whitman do tests where he would drop these big lead balls from a certain distance, and it would go on normal foams that you see. They would bounce, and then he would do it on the foams in his gloves, and it would stop dead in its tracks or move very little, similar to the D3O test with rival boxing equipment. So that's basically what you have here. When you first get it out of the box, the padding is actually pretty stiff, I'm not gonna lie to you, but it breaks in beautifully. It does break in very nice, and it took a couple rounds, but you know what, eventually it stayed broken in. It's, I'd say, in the medium soft department, so it's right in the middle, leaning more towards plush. So it's very forgiving on the knuckles, and it's very thick padding. I mean, there are some boxing gloves I have out that are not as thick as this, and on top of it, it's pretty rounded towards the top, so the padding creates that distance between your knuckles and the target, which is always a good thing, especially if you have you know, knuckle problems or brittle hands. So I always like that. And you can see the top of the padding is the thickest part of the glove, and it has that nice door hinge style knuckles, so you're able to open and close your hand very easily when it comes to that's the intended design, is to open and close your hand easily when it comes to like grappling or anything like that, grab and clinch. But it's a pretty soft padding. I got punched in the face by these because I let someone use them at a sparring event that I went to, and I got hit in the face by them, and they felt pretty plush on my face. So if that means anything to you, that's good. But it's very thick protective foam that you have here, and it's a pretty thick layer. I'd say multi-layers, at least 3 to 4 inside of an MMA sparring glove is actually usually pretty unheard of, which is kind of crazy. And again, you have that nice compartment over here, so it tucks your knuckles in, keeps the side of your hand protected as well. The padding doesn't really protrude past, so hammer fists are still pretty wide open, but the padding is soft enough on the side to where the hammer fists will catch enough to kind of take things off. And believe it or not, the hardest registered strike in the sport of MMA is a hammer fist, so it's always good to have protection from that. So overall, the padding's really nice, and then the outer shell's nice, but let's talk about kind of when it comes to the fingers, the thumbs, and the wrist. First and foremost, we'll talk about the back of the wrist, and as you can see here, we have a really nice X system, similar to the X Factor. The only difference is the X Factor had 2 straps, but you can see we have an angled system here, and this is a stiff EVA foam is what it feels like. What EVA foam does, guys, is it basically keeps the glove in one solid shape. It also helps support and hug the body a lot more. more because it stays in a rigid shape at all time. It's what's called a closed cell foam. The foam you have in the knuckles is an open cell foam. That way air gets in and out. It's able to breathe. It's usually softer. Closed cell foam, no air gets in or out. It's very stiff. Think a wrestling or a yoga mat. That's a closed cell foam in most cases. Open cell foam is say like a mattress topper. That's the easiest way to word it to you. So you have that stiff EVA foam on the back, and you can see they have that cross system, and what that does is it allows the side of the glove to kind of hug your wrist in a bit more of a natural fist position, which is great. So when you strap this on, and you'll see that in a second, it works very well. It's very thin padding, but it's still firm, and it's still firm enough that it stops the impact on the back of your hand as well. The one thing I really didn't care for and still don't to this day is that the wrist strap is so small, and it's in somewhat, for me, an awkward shape, and it doesn't stay on so well, and I'll show that in a second. But that's a smaller wrist strap compared to some. It opens, and the Velcro is very strong. It opens and closes easily, and you're able to open it wide, and it flies out really easy, so you have a nice open glove, which is always great. You can see here with the thumb, you have some padding on the two different thumb knuckles, the bottom thumb knuckle and the top thumb knuckle. Same exact padding that you're going to have here, that stiff EVA foam. That way it works. And I always test it with casting punches, which you're throwing that way. On the bags, I do this just to see how that padding works. Actually a lot better than a lot of other gloves out there as far as the thumb protection goes, of like smashing your thumb, because it's stiff enough to stop impact, but it's soft enough to still feel comfortable on your hand. Because if you have too stiff of a padding in the glove, it's not going to feel good on your hand. It's going to feel like you're hitting a very hard surface. So that's what you got going on there. But again, you have a very thin wrist strap. It feeds through the buckle pretty well. It's your standard buckle system. I wish it wasn't a metal buckle. I think players boxing gloves, players boxing MMA sparring gloves have kind of spoiled me because they use a rubber ring, which I think works great. But this is your classic metal. I don't think because of a brand like ONX, I'm holding it in that regard, that this will ever pop out, but that does happen sometimes. The metal will pop out, which is never good. Again, the interior lining is a really nice cowhide leather, and it actually does have a leather scent, and you also have leather up by the finger guards themselves. In general, it's very soft compared to the rest of the glove as far as the finger guards go, but the lining is very smooth but very stiff, and you can feel that there's like the EVA foam that you have at the back here. This is actually super hard. Like, just to give you an idea of how hard this is, I'm gonna knock. Complete silence. Right? That's not normal for me. So the back of the glove on your hand and up by your knuckles on the inside is very stiff, and that never broke in quite too well for me. Even when I use leather conditioner to soften it, it is super, sounds like I'm knocking on wood, but you hear a big difference, right? And then I give you an idea. That's very hard in the middle, and it was very unforgiving on the back of my hands every so often, and that was the one thing the guy at the sparring event used. He said, yeah, it just felt super stiff up by my fingers. But we'll go ahead and I'll put this on. You have a pretty nice fit and feel right off the jump. It hugs the back of your hand really well, and it hugs upwards by your knuckles really well, and you're able to make a nice natural closed fist, which is always good. And I'll go ahead and strap the glove up here. This is the one thing, even with hand wraps on, what I didn't like, when I strap this tight, it pinches my skin. Even with a hand wrap, I find that it gathered my skin, so I have to pull like this. And then the other thing I don't like is when you strap it up tight, like I'll even strap it real tight like that. So it's pinching my skin right now, but after a couple moves, it's very loose at the base of my wrist, and I do not like that. Even with hand wraps on, it does that. The other thing I don't like is my fingers kind of creep out a little bit, meaning that they're kind of sliding down because that wrist strap is just not all that great. The other part I don't like about it is that my wrist bone, the big one that I like to have supported more than anything, is covered by the back of these a lot more than it is the actual wrist strap, where I want the added pressure and compression to keep it in place. Now, there could be an anatomical reason to that for Trevor Whitman to have done that, but for me, it just doesn't feel like it's the best wrist support. And I have jarred my wrist back quite a few times on these gloves, which was not fun. And I'd like to think at this point, from trying so many different gloves and from doing this for so long, it wasn't a technical issue on my end, it was a technical issue on the glove's end because of the way it overly pronounces the cupping mechanism. And what I mean by that is it always emphasizes that it's going to stop eye pokes. For one, poke, I can still poke you pretty easily in these gloves. Trust me, I made a whole video on it. But the big deal is that it's cupping me so much that it's like bringing my wrist down in such an unnatural way. And when I jabbed one of the first days of me using them, my wrist went because my fist was just constantly here. You can see this is me just closing it. This isn't me moving my wrist. Like watch, straight up here, okay, close, and look how much it overly pronounces my fist. Same thing, open, close, it just constantly brings it down a bit much. The padding overhangs on your door knocking knuckles so much when you punch, it pinches your skin quite often, which isn't nice. And although the actual finger guards are soft, it kind of is irritable at the very tips here. It's not smooth, so it kind of cuts into my fingers a lot. And closing my fist, and it happens a lot with my pinkies because they're short, but when I close my fist, you can see my pinky is not closing all the way and is kind of slightly open. I know some people punch that way, but I choose not to. The other thing too is when you get clinch or grapple in these, opening your hand like this is a workout for me right now, doing this, and that's never good. If I have to struggle to open to like shoot or struggle to grab a clinch or a collar or wrist control, it wears my hand out quickly. And the thing is, once you wear out your grip, your arms are going to fry relatively quickly, and you never want that to happen with a pair of gloves. And that's what I feel in these. The thumb guard, I don't mind that it's more closed off towards the tip. The only thing is it does pinch my thumb off a little bit. And I know what you're thinking, was it because it's too small of a glove? No, because the rest of the glove fits just fine. In fact, the rule is always 2 fingers of your own should fit in here and close your fist, and that's about as much room as you need for hand wraps as well. There is plenty of space for a good hand wrap on the inside of this glove, which is always nice. So I do appreciate that. So if you need the little bit of extra padding, that's always great. The knuckle padding is great. The back of the hand's okay, but the wrist support, not so great. I find that I bend my wrist back a lot. And not only because the glove is overly cupping it, but because the glove is incredibly unbalanced. And what I mean by that is it's a very top heavy glove. As you can see, all the paddings here. So when we do this, obviously you have your door knocking mechanism. That's so you can open and close your hands a little bit better in most cases. But you can also see that this is basically what your wrist support's banking on. Plus you have that little wrist strap there. So watch this, I do this and it just curves down. It's not really what I want on my wrist. Even with that stiff foam, and I'll strap it nice and tight. Watch how easy it is to just bend that. So that's your wrist bone bending in and out of the glove, which is never a good sign. So that's not always good. And as you can see, we can fold the whole glove in half, just like this, backwards and forwards. So it doesn't really do a good job of stabilizing it back, forward, or side to side, in my opinion. So your wrist, in my opinion, I have very strong wrists. I have very strong hands in general, especially as a heavyweight. But I've jolted my wrist one too many times in these gloves, and I did not like that. And again, they're very top heavy. So, you know, when I do my balance test, I usually just spread my fingers out like this, right? And I have more pressure towards the top so it doesn't fall. But the moment I put it dead in the middle here, okay, all the way across, you can see I'm not moving my hand. Okay, it's this test too. I do this and notice when I drop it a little bit, it still has all the weight kind of coming up this way. Whereas if I do the wrist strap, of course, even if I do it like this, right, and I give it a little bit of extra help and I slowly release it, it's just going to constantly fall. That's where all the weight is. I put my hand right on the back. Again, we're right in the middle of the glove, and it naturally just pops over that way. Very top heavy MMA sparring glove. Most MMA sparring gloves I find are a little bit more balanced, but again, this is focusing more on striking. As far as grappling goes, not the best. It really tires out your hands. They're really big and bulky, so getting in certain positions is tiring. But when it comes to like bags and pads too, I don't like them as much because it kind of jolts my wrist back. But with that said, let's go ahead and go into the bag work, and then we'll come back with my final thoughts. So like I said in the breakdown of the glove, the knuckle padding is great because of how thick it is, but because they're unbalanced, I definitely don't like these as much on the bags and pads because I feel like the wrist support just isn't there. In sparring, it's not really much of an issue. The clinch is not really all that great with these. Overall, getting grips in these gloves is kind of hard. It really strains my fingers a bit. The lining is just so hard, even with hand wraps on, that it just kind of feels like you're hitting a harder surface before you get to that padding. I wish the padding was a little bit more plush on the inside of the glove itself. But besides that, they're okay. But as far as bags and pads, as you can see, not my favorite. Well, the one area that you're always going to win in ONX is the look of the glove. They look awesome. As you can see here, I can get halfway decent palm-to-palm grips or gable grips, but getting S grips or anything like that, going underneath the neck is kind of difficult because of how big and bulky they are. But I do love that gold and black. Just for me, one of my favorite colorways of all time. Really pops out well. And you can see even still, because the glove overly cups your knuckles, I can still poke you in the eyes. You're able to open the glove like that. But in general, they look awesome. I just wish the performance, especially with bags and pads, was as good as it looks. All right, folks, before I go into my final verdict of the gloves themselves, I know this is one of the longer reviews I've done, and I know it can be very long-winded, but when it comes to investing in gloves, especially MMA sparring gloves that are upwards of $220, which is a lot more than a lot of other gloves out there, I'm expecting people from all spectrums to buy these gloves, whether it be the amateur spectrum, whether it be the pro spectrum, and stuff like that. And I basically want you guys to know everything about the glove before you buy them, because they very well may not be for you, because personally, if I were to buy them again, I would not. And that's where my hot take comes from for my final verdict. I don't think they're a bad glove. I don't want you to get that idea. I don't think that they suck. I don't think that they're horrible, but they were not my favorite. And personally, they're just not my cup of tea compared to some other gloves that I've tried. I think what we have here in a lot of ways, and it's not a bad thing at all, is we have a product of marketing and exposure more than we do performance. And what do I mean by that? Would we honestly know ONX Sports without the main fighters that Trevor Whitman has, or without Trevor Whitman himself? Because there have been multiple fighters and coaches that have made gear in the past or have made different designs or whatever it is, and they've fallen off the face of the planet because they just weren't as popular. But if I saw Justin Gaethje, one of the most exciting guys in MMA history, using these gloves, naturally you're going to have people that love him and trying to emulate that style buy the equipment he's going to use. It's just like people buying Michael Jordan shoes, things like that, or someone using Derek Jeter style cleats on the baseball field, whatever sports analogy you want to talk about. People want to use what the pros are using, and that's about it. I mean, in boxing, what person doesn't use Winning or Grant, right? Grants weren't really popular till Floyd Mayweather started using them. And of course, because Floyd used them, a lot of people wanted to use them. And that's basically, in my opinion, what we have going on here. Thinking about Kamaru Usman, Justin Gaethje, Rose Namajunas, Corey Sandhagen, all loved by the public. Trevor Whitman, a very respected coach. And of course, you have Joe Rogan, who endorses the brand and only uses their stuff. And he has billions of views on his podcast and listens and all those different things, and that episode alone has well over 1 million views at this point, I'm sure. So that's basically what you got going on with this glove, in my opinion. Now, does that mean that the glove sucks? No, of course not. In fact, there's a lot of things I love about the glove, but for now, we're going to go into the things that I like about the glove. We're going to talk about some things I would change, and then we're going to give my final rating. First and foremost, I think that they will last you a very long time. ONX makes gloves very high quality, and they are built to last. The durability and longevity is awesome. Longevity-wise, I would see these gloves lasting you upwards of 3 years if you beat the tar out of them, because I've had them for 3.5 months, and I did what it says on the website, and that is if you're a pro, you're training up to 2 to 3 times a day, and I was for my fight especially. I beat these gloves up and they still looked the exact same. They broke in, but they still look the same. Not a blemish, not a mark on them, not a stitch was out of place. So very high quality, very durable. And that microfiber outer shell is absolutely amazing. It is so nice to clean because all you gotta do is take a Lysol wipe it off and you're good to go. And it feels soft and supple, and it just has a nice texture to it. And I think honestly this is the best material for MMA equipment. It's just, I think, expensive to work with a lot of the times, but it is literally designed for sports anything, which is absolutely awesome. So I love the outer shell. Feels really nice. The padding is super thick for an MMA sparring glove, but it protects your knuckles better than most MMA sparring gloves out there, if not than all of them. And I'll talk about the drawback to that in a second. But the padding is super thick, and it has more of a boxing glove shape and design, and it feels very similar to the X Factor padding, and I love the X Factor padding. It is super nice on the hand. It's medium soft. It took a couple sessions to break in, but once it breaks in, it stays broken in, which is awesome. The glove does not stiffen or firm up on you after a couple days of leaving them on the shelf. I always check that before I do the reviews. But in general, padding super nice and protective, and that's always good. So you have the durability, you have the quality, the longevity of the glove, and you have the knuckle protection. They are meant more for striking, I would say. But now this is where we start talking about some of the things that I really did not enjoy. First and foremost, comfort. It's always, I always say my big 3 ones are comfort, safety, and budget, right? Those are the ones I always try and go into, but especially comfort and safety above all. Safety for you, safety for me, comfort for me as well is always important, because if the glove's not comfortable, my training experience will suck. I've had several gloves that have done that. It's a very awkward fit. And the reason why, I think it's because it's putting you in that overly pronounced cupping shape that's trying to prevent the eye pokes. But again, guys, it's not the gloves that's doing the eye pokes. I will stand by that. Go watch my video on that. I basically, every single one of my MMA gloves, including the MMA sparring gloves, poked like this, just as easy. Some gloves made it a little bit harder than most. Some were easier than others. Whatever it might be, you're still going to be able to poke people in the eyes. But I wouldn't focus so much on that and sell people on that, especially because how often do you hear of eye pokes in the training room compared to fights? Exactly. So why is that such a big deal when I can still do this? So that's something I didn't like. It was overly pronounced cupping shape. The glove is too unbalanced for that, in my opinion. On top of it, doing this now, it's really, the wrist strap too is not my favorite because it's thin, pulls tight, and on top of it, where it is not on my wrist bone, which is right here. That's the back of the padding here. It's like more on the base of my forearm, and I don't really like that. I wish the strap was right in the center, right on my wrist bone, keeping everything in place, because it's just pulling my skin and really yanking it to the side. Even with hand wraps on, it still pinches the skin in the hand wraps, and it's very loose at the base. I'm able to really get my fingers in deep and pry the glove off the back of my wrist. And watch, I'll strap it as tight as I can, okay, and I'm still able to get my fingers in there relatively easily. Even with hand wraps on, that's easy to do. And you never want that with a pair of gloves. So that's one thing I didn't like about it. It overly cups your fist, and the padding is soft on the outside and plush, but it kind of stops it. The knuckle padding's good, but the wrist support, it's not there. The back of the hand, like your metacarpals and stuff, is fine, but your wrist support, I feel like, because it's so overly cupped, when you punch, instead of landing flat like it should, it glances down like this all the time. And again, not to toot my own horn, but I've been doing this stuff for a long time, and I've tried a bunch of different gloves that have not had the same issue, that were not as good quality as these. So I do think it is a design error that is causing my wrist to bend and break. And for reasons like that is why I would say, if you have bad wrist, avoid the glove. And that's just my humble and honest opinion. I've had a bunch of my teammates try these on to see if I was nuts. They said the same thing. They felt like their fists were going down. So I wish the glove did maybe about here, like it's curving down so much here. Maybe it was about here, so when I punch, it lines up here. But again, the padding's awesome. You can't even feel the outside of your knuckles, but it kind of takes away when the shock absorbing padding works so well, and that stops the impact from getting down to my wrist. But when the overall shape of the glove snaps it down, it's just not good, right? And I don't like that. My fingers get pinched all the time. Grappling in these, again, opening your hand is really strenuous. I can feel all the pressure on the back of my hand and my wrist, and that's gonna burn your hands out really quick. And once your grip burns out, your whole arm will get fried, and that's never what you want, especially in the middle of your training session. I wish the thumb opened up a little bit more at the tip, but otherwise that's pretty much okay. It kind of cuts off some circulation. When we open the glove up wide, the one thing too that concerns me is that I know there's EVA foam the back here for the wrist support and everything, and that's all the way throughout the bottom of the wrist. But you have that EVA foam that's really hard and stiff on this side in the leather lining itself. The leather is super easy to clean. The leather itself, like the top of it, is kind of soft, but the rest of it, like when you push into it, is really hard. And so even with hand wraps on, when I'm punching in this part of the glove, you hear how hard that is. That's not good, you know. And I felt like my fists were not punching a target, and that the plush padding was there. Sometimes it felt like I was hitting a really hard foam on the inside of the glove that pinched my fingers back, which kind of defeats the purpose of having that awesome knuckle padding design that they have there. I mean, that is absolutely amazing what they have going on here, but then you have that really stiff padding up by the fingers, and after you hit the bags and pads for a little bit, you feel that kind of wear down in your knuckles a little bit, and that's never a good thing. So you have a lot of a good thing with that knuckle padding itself. You have a lot of a bad thing with this being so stiff towards the top, and that's never good for the hands. Overall, it's not very comfortable on my hand. Grappling in these is not that great. Getting a clinch is very tiresome when you're trying to open and close the glove. And for me, $220 is just, it's a lot of money for most people, and you're going to market it to people that are supposed to be training for world champions and stuff like that, or that are really high level pros. My humble opinion is I wish the Precision line came out first, and I probably would have got those and then these, because I think those gloves might be a better option for $70 less, basically, to see if you like them. And if you do, you can eventually upgrade to these for the durability factor, but they're the same glove with a big price point. $220 for me, price versus performance, it's not there. I would safely buy a Combat Sports Max Strike over these. And in fact, you've seen Kamaru Usman, who is sponsored and well, not sponsored, but uses ONX gear because Trevor's his coach, has also used Combat Sports Max Strikes constantly. Gaethje only uses ONX stuff because that's really all he knows. Rose Namajunas used Sandoval sparring gloves for the most part. Corey Sandhagen used Sandoval and Combat Sports before. Now he uses this stuff, but there's still some clips of him using other stuff out there too. So for me, again, you have a really big marketing development for this glove. But for me, it's just like the performance wasn't as good as I wish it was. Again, doesn't mean the glove sucks. It's not bad, but it's not the best glove I've ever used. So with that said, what rating would I give these gloves out of 10, and what tier would I put them in? For me, I'm going to give these gloves a solid 7 out of 10, and I'm going to put them in the B tier, which is the good glove category. And again, just for a refresher for you, F is horrible. It's the worst glove you can get. D is poor. It's a poor glove. C is average. B is good. A is great. S is excellent. S is excellent when I say I would recommend it for everybody. A is great because it's pretty much right there, but there's some people that may not work for. B is a good glove for you to try, is the way I would say it. It's a good glove to try. There are some drawbacks to it here or there, but hey, if it's something that you want to get, it's a good option. It's not the best, but it's a good option. And that's basically what I would say about these gloves. $220 for what you get from me is just not there. I would rather get the Combat Sports Max Strike, a Fairtex FGV 18. I'd rather get the Sami pounding gloves when it comes to the sparring category of this. I think they do a better job. I think they're a lot more versatile than these gloves. I basically think that these are quite literally a boxing glove that had the palm taken away, which is basically what an MMA sparring glove is supposed to be, but at least most MMA sparring gloves I've shown you, you're able to grapple in them pretty well. But in this case, you're not. So the grappling aspect is not there. So if you're doing these for MMA sparring, these are for big bang 'em out days, is the way I word it, when you are strictly striking. But for me, if you want a complete versatile MMA glove, I would look elsewhere. Or I would try with the Precision, which is about $145, so it's about $70 cheaper than this glove here. I think the pluses are great. They're durable. The knuckle padding's awesome. I wish the fingers just had more freedom to move. I wish you were able to not feel such a hard padding as far as like the actual line padding of the glove is the way I would word it. Like the backing of the glove, really stiffen up and hurt the back of your hand and knuckles and just wear it out faster. And I don't like that it does that because it has so much good going for it that gets ruined by small little mistakes, in my opinion, like that. And it could very well be a thing where the model I got just wasn't up to par with everything else. It could very well be my anatomy's off, but again, it's my opinion at the end of the day, and I'm going to stick to it. I think it's a good glove, but it's nothing to write home about, in my opinion, and that is probably the hottest take you're going to hear about this glove. Maybe some other people I have the same opinion. I've seen some people in the comments say, don't even bother reviewing them. They suck, and things like that. Again, I don't think they suck, but I don't think they're great either. But with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this review. I hope I covered everything for you and I answered all your questions. But of course, if I didn't, please comment below and let me know if there's anything I can help you out with. Reach out to me on my social media pages. I'm primarily active on Instagram, and a lot of people have been emailing me lately, and I respond to those usually on a daily or like bi-daily basis as much as I can. I love keeping in contact with all of you guys. Of course, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It goes a long way to help the channel. When you hit that notification bell, you get notified for reviews just like these. And of course, if you are looking for different gear reviews, check them out on the channel and share them with a friend if they're looking for some new gloves too. I got a bunch on the channel and I got more coming, especially for the year 2026. Great to still be active. Wanted to break up the Muay Thai glove reviews for a little bit. Those are going to start right after this, but you guys have been demanding these for so long that I could no longer put it on the back burner. They're a day late. I wanted to post them on Friday. I'm going to post them on Saturday because I was just really busy with wrestling and coaching and stuff like that over the last couple of days. But thank you all so much for watching your source of combat sports, the Combat Corporation. I've been your host, Al, the Postmaster Mo, and as always, I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day, everybody.